For the last few decades, the world has been mostly peaceful, with imperial powers consolidating their powers so much that none dare fight against each other. The same peace has been seen in our homeland of Mongolia, despite a civil war that raged in our south. Because after our independence from the Qing Empire and with us befriending the strong Russian Empire, we saw a true national revival. While much of the economic rise has been thanks to our close relations with the Russians and the Qing, our own internal stability is due to the eternal regency of Sambandondogin having established a stable status quo. There are still internal issues though, of course, and with issues the status quo is constantly challenged. On one side stands the social liberal parliament and on the other the militaristic noblemen in the Senate. All are in agreement that we must continue our economic growth, however, and much of it derives from Russia, who are experiencing a golden age as we speak. They have helped us out with infrastructure through their own investments in Siberia, and with their industry being the second strongest in the world, we've seen massive investments into our own nation as well from Russian capitalists. It can be seen especially in Tuva, our region closest to Russia. Another underappreciated benefit of our friendship is that they have introduced motorization in our nation, sadly slowly replacing our horse friends. The Russians aren't our only economic friends though. Despite the Qing being our past rivals, we've built a strong relation with them, mainly driven by the trade along the Trans-Manchurian Railway. The good times wouldn't last forever though, and it was just these connections that would be our downfall. Because in Europe an economic crash had taken form, spreading throughout the world like a wildfire, and soon enough the panic of 1931 reached us through our strong economic connections with Russia and China. Even worse for regional stability was that the status quo in China had broke, and the Second Chinese Civil War started just on our border. But the worst had yet to arrive. It came when the Russians left, leaving us all alone with now not only a major economic crisis but a huge political one as well. As the status quo between the Eternal Regency and the two other factions has broken down and stability is gone. Thankfully, despite our history of ruthless rulers, our current politics are rather peaceful by nature, so instead of a civil war like that in China, a great debate between our three sides took place. In the end, it wasn't the more popular social liberals that would win, nor the regent. It was the noblemen in the Senate who had managed to convince the majority that the only thing that can save Mongolia now is a strong hand. And so we are no longer ruled by the eternal regent, but by the noblemen under Namnan Suren, who immediately, as promised during the debate, declared martial law. So with unlimited powers, the work to fix Mongolia begins. The first thing we did was to abolish the political division, further consolidating power and greatly increasing stability. But we quickly moved to the biggest issue we face, the panic of 1931. Having diagnosed the reason for the economic crash as an over-reliance on foreign powers, we immediately started cracking down on the free market that had let them in, introducing statism instead. In cooperation with the central bank, we started walking the road of recovery and could unlock enough funds to begin massive investments. Because following Keynesian economics, we need to invest into our economy. Huge ones were focused on infrastructure and opening up more land for our factories, which then allowed us to spend a lot of money on supporting small businesses. After further infrastructure improvements, we could begin accelerate urbanization as it plays a key role in industrial might. A part of this focus was to effectivize our agriculture, allowing farmers to move into the cities. But with no factories to greet them, our economy would suffer greatly. So we started building up state-owned factories, mostly focusing on military production to further strengthen our national security in this time of growing tensions. But during this long economic focus, other things had occurred as well. At one point, our third neighbor, Xinjiang, reached out to us seeking cooperation. Our militaristic government shot down this idea immediately though, as we can't repeat our mistakes we did by cooperating with Russia and China. In parallel to this, we drastically cranked up Mongolian nationalism, as in our noble government the idea of reuniting all Mongols had taken a foothold and is now rapidly spreading throughout our civil society as well. The only way to achieve this goal is probably through military conquest, or at least might. And while we can't begin a massive army reform at the moment, we could at least begin militarizing our society, starting with the ground pillar, education. Most of our focus was still put on our economy though, as we could replace our shallow democracy with a merit system, a part of which was the Supreme Council of Entrepreneurs who will help us make the right decision on economic matters. This would help us approach full recovery and continued growth, allowing for further spending. Spending which we could use on more miscellaneous parts of the economy. For example, we began investing into the health of our workers and created a radio station in our capital. Finally, we raised the salaries in our state-owned factories, greatly increasing consumer sentiment. And so, together with everything else, we have defeated the crisis of 1931 and come out even stronger. Our economy has grown massively and our research has followed, with us gaining a 4th research slot. This success allows us to fully begin preparing for our goal of uniting our Mongol lands. It starts with reforming our armed forces. Currently it consists of small infantry regiments and a bit larger cavalry divisions, but nothing more. We've thankfully already started building up artillery and support equipment, though compared to the reforms we're about to launch, this is nothing. We started small, modernizing our current equipment and supporting our police. But soon we stepped up signing new armament contracts, focusing on our goal of creating a modern cavalry division, one with mechanized and rocket artillery. To test out the first few new types of equipment, we held the largest military exercise in modern Mongolian history, from which we gained enough experience to fully design our mechanized divisions. While our military generals drew more lessons from the exercise, our government would introduce some cultural reforms to help us strengthen the army. By enforcing traditional values, those of Genghis Khan himself, we will greatly improve the willingness to fight, though at the cost of industrial expertise. Together with this, we would also begin celebrate our soldiers and putting them in the center of our society to strengthen their morale. Through this major cultural shift, we've been able to fully transform the political landscape of Mongolia and end the political chaos which had occurred after Russia left. We now stand strongly alone and with a nation ready to conquer the world. But we can't achieve our expansionist goals all alone. We need support from some outside power. Searching around the world for already existing factions, we would only find 2 willing to accept our entry. The Soyuzniki of Russia, who we will never rejoin, and strangely enough the League of Nations, headed by the socialist USA. They seem to have fully surrendered any ideological objectives already, as they've allied the Emirate of Afghanistan, the polar opposite of socialism. And so as they accepted our entry, we find ourselves not only allied to a slightly waning superpower, though still strong, but also Afghanistan, whose growth has been much like ours in recent times. Now, despite American economic hardships at home, we still benefited greatly by being able to cooperate with the second strongest military industry in the world, especially as investments and experts also followed after. We would additionally see the start of an important scientific exchange program helping us out in most fields. The final upfront benefit was army cooperation. As they arrived, they were incredibly impressed by our 6 mechanized divisions already deployed, even calling our vehicle design the best in the world. But they weren't as impressed by our normal cavalry, so we expanded the division and equipped it with some extra support companies to improve it, also starting to train an additional 6. With world tension having slowly risen the past 3 years, like with the German invasion of Belgium, we've decided that it's soon time to strike. Our enemies are obviously the Soyuzniki in the north and west and the 3 Chinese contenders still fighting. So we cut all ties with all the nations and enacted several measures to start mobilizing, like recruiting more people and halting most resource exports. With China being the easiest target since they are in a civil war, we decided to start with them, officially claiming our Mongolian lands and starting to justify on the Qing Empire and the Republic. So we prepared the last few things before our first war, deploying our 6 cavalry in training and predicting total war that is possible if we fail our plans of lightning warfare. We would even start researching into creating a military police, as occupying China is sure to be difficult in the beginning. After 90 days of final preparations, we stand ready, at least to fight one of the 3 Chinas. And the first will be the Qing, since our military generals have come up with a brilliant plan against them. Drive to Beijing and then win, as probably over half their army will be encircled. And this was the plan we executed as we declared war on our former rival and friend. Immediately after driving over the front, our mechanized divisions would break through as the Qing infantry stood no chance. Following the road to Beijing, we would soon arrive outside the city, but instead of capturing it, we focused on continuing all the way to the coast. The first few Qing reinforcements would arrive at this point though, and they could mostly stop our advances. Thankfully, the 3 other mechanized would reinforce and manage to encircle and destroy one of the Qing reinforcements, capturing Beijing in the process. While things look quite unstable now, with counterattacks almost everywhere, we've seen an unexpected benefit of our invasion. About 3% of the population of our 2 newly conquered states, which includes Beijing, are willing to join our army and fight for the Mongolian cause. So we could immediately start training up 20 cavalry divisions to almost double our army. While waiting for them to train, we tried our best to keep Beijing under our control, but with them having almost 3 times our troops, we had a hard time and had to slowly retreat, not to risk getting encircled. At one point we did stage a counterattack to take back a supply hub, but despite this, Beijing would eventually fall back to Qing control. Some weeks later, after the deployment of 6 extra cavalry to protect the northern front, we had stabilized mostly everything, allowing us to restart offensives. We focused on a small one this time though, only attempting to encircle already supply-deprived divisions. And this worked excellently, as not only a bunch of Qing divisions were encircled, but also volunteers from Japan and Russia. We then quickly sent the mechanized units north as the Qing offensive there had continued. We arrived just at the right moment to counterattack, so in a swooping offensive the whole 6th Division attacking army was completely encircled and destroyed. With their momentum now destroyed and the offensive spirit back on our side, we have the opportunity to seize victory, and we wouldn't let it slip by. Victory, the Qing have been defeated and all of Manchuria lies under our control. The Battle of China is yet far from over, as the Republic and Empire of China still remain. While waiting 65 days before our justification on the Empire finished, we started training up 18 more mechanized divisions in preparation for much larger wars. But the 65 days were quickly over, and so we declared war on both the remaining Chinas. With the Empire already having almost been destroyed before our intervention in the Civil War, they are incredibly weak. Thus, we could quickly return to Beijing and easily continue without a real risk. Several of their divisions were then encircled in East Hebei, opening up the front further. Soon enough, we had reached the Republican naval invasion of Shandong, encircling further divisions with their help. Still, we didn't show any mercy and quickly captured the only Republican port, leaving their divisions helplessly surrounded by enemies. After they were destroyed, we turned east, setting our sight on reaching the Republic Imperial front to cut the Empire in two. Just like the rest of our offensives, the imperial forces could do nothing against our mechanized, so soon enough we had achieved our objective, cutting probably over half their army off of their capital. With our 18 additional mechanized divisions now deployed, we could easily clear out the encircled divisions, dealing a huge number of casualties compared to how easy the job was. During this offensive, 2 brigade commanders of 2 of our mechanized divisions had taken matters into their own hands and driven past the Republican lines deep into their lands. Sensing an opportunity, we sent over a bunch of reinforcements and started exploiting the huge gap. What followed was chaos. Chaos advantageous to us as the Republic didn't have close to enough divisions to reinforce everywhere, allowing us to drive to city after city. Soon enough, 2 of our cavalry divisions had defeated the garrison of Guangzhou, seizing the Republican capital. Then, after the fall of Nanning, the Republican government surrendered, leaving only the Empire of China left. With us having basically already destroyed them though, all we had to do was to enter Wuhan and start marching towards Shanghai for the Empire to surrender. And so the Battle of China has been won, all our claims have been reintegrated into Mongolia, and we even extend all the way to the Yellow River. In southern China though, we established a puppet regime led by the administration and emperor of the Empire of China we just defeated. And so now that peace times have set in, we will begin the coring process of our lands, which our military police already has done a great job at. There is something much larger in the works though, the invasion of Russia. With their huge army and power, we can't go in unrehearsed. Extensive planning and a huge military buildup on our side is needed. Fortunately, we already have the resources. With a massive stockpile of equipment and plenty of manpower to recruit, we could begin training 60 of our cavalry divisions. This period of build-up wasn't completely peaceful though, because during our fighting in China, the Commonwealth of Nations, led by the United Kingdom and Japan, had declared war on our American allies. So now that the war in China is over, we can join the fight and take over Korea. With the Japanese not expecting our attack, our mechanized were quickly able to find a gap in the front, liberate Pyongyang and encircle the whole Japanese army. After they were all destroyed, we turned our focus to the south, where we swiftly continued the offensive all the way to Busan, destroying all Japanese reinforcements. In the end, this lightning invasion had been so one-sided, we inflicted about 50 times our own casualties on the Japanese. But this wasn't the end, because unlike when our heirs fought the Japanese and failed twice, we have the support of the American Navy. Together with them also having trained up 3 elite marines for us, we started the battle of crossing over to Japan. It took countless days, but eventually we crossed over, so this is where the fun part begins. The island of Kyushu was quickly captured, allowing us to cross to the next island, that of Shikoku. From here we attempted to encircle both Hiroshima and capture Osaka. Unfortunately, due to bad supply, the Osaka offensive stopped. But restoring our supply on the Hiroshima front, we were able to capture the city and destroy all its garrisons, allowing us to turn to the east and begin the second battle of Osaka. With the Japanese having heavily reinforced the city and with our mechanized being weaker in urban terrain, we had a hard time reaching the city center. However, they had missed one thing in their defenses, our encirclement strategy. So in a matter of a few days, the city and all its defenses had been encircled, allowing us to easily crush it and enter the city. And so the road to Tokyo was open, where the Battle of Osaka would be repeated, as we could only capture the capital after the Japanese failed to stop an encirclement. With the capital captured and over 1 million casualties inflicted on the Japanese, their government surrendered. So it's time to return to the main objective, our coming war with the Russians. During our Japanese invasion, we had not only deployed our 60 cavalry, but an additional 100 trained later, putting our total deployed manpower close to 2.5 million, which is comparable to the Russians. As we thus stand ready, we claimed all of Siberia as ours and declared war as soon as possible. Because the Russians haven't seemed to noted our willingness for expansion, focusing their efforts on Europe instead. So with almost no Russian division on our front, we launched 5 different attacks, 1 into Xinjiang, 3 to the supply hubs north of us, and the last towards Vladivostok. We focused most of our efforts on the 3 into Siberia, where we successfully encircled and captured Irkutsk, the most important city along the Trans-Siberian Railway. Together with other capturings of the railway, Siberia now lies completely isolated, with only a single port left for the Russians to flee from, as Vladivostok has already been captured. So before they begin retreating from this port, we sent half our mechanized army to capture it. Now, despite meeting some resistance, the Russian flag being replaced with the Mongolian one was inevitable, and so all of eastern Siberia is now fully isolated. The next few months, we cleared up all this, sending any overflowing divisions to the west. During this time, great news would arrive from the home front. All our Chinese claims have been successfully cored, greatly strengthening our economy and allowing us to send our military police to Russia instead. Now, during this whole war, a harsh battle had taken place over Xinjiang. While we had the element of surprise at first, the whole Soyuzniki would help out their ally, forcing us to send over a bunch of extra troops not to lose ground. We would now attempt to regain the initiative, but with the massive amount of forces here, we saw no success. Instead, we will return to the Trans-Siberian Railway, and with the Russian forces defending it horribly out of supply, this will be easy. First, the supply hub of Omsk was captured, then Tyumen followed, and lastly Chelyabinsk and Yekaterinburg, together with a nice encirclement. With this, the Ural Mountains were crossed and Europe lies ahead. Our Mongolian horde will strike down the Russian Empire and turn the clock back to the 13th century. The Mongol Empire has risen and we extend past the territories of the great Genghis Khan himself, with troops all the way in Greece and Arabia. With almost all of Asia under our empire, we have the largest industry in the world, and with over 8 million deployed manpower, no nation comes close to our strength. Not even resistance is causing us any trouble. All of eastern Siberia has already been cored, and resistance in Russia is on its way to fall to zero. So thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.